Hi Masterson, welcome back to Adelaide. This is your 6th or 7th trip here now.
Yep, 7th, yeah.
I'd like to start firstly just getting your thoughts on the role of theatre in fringes, and in particular in the Edinburgh Fringe. The perception relative to here in Adelaide, the perception I think might be that the Adelaide Fringe by South Australians is sort of comedy based. Is that the experience with the Edinburgh Fringe, and where does theatre sit in terms of its content?
Well, that's a quite complex question to start with, but I think I can give a simple answer to it. The fringes in both Edinburgh and Adelaide started with theatre, and I think that because comedy has blossomed over the last 20 years, there are a lot more comedians around than there are theatre companies. It's also a hell of a lot cheaper to produce comedy than it is to produce theatre. You don't need sets, you don't need props, all you need is a wit and a microphone and maybe a light, and you've got comedy. As long as you're funny, you'll stick around. So I think there's been a blossoming and a plethora of comedy, which gives the impression of drowning out theatre. It's also a much more popular medium in the sense that comedians are readily available for television and consequently have a greater profile, whereas theatre, in order to generate a bigger profile, they need success. Theatre itself is a much more thought out medium. It takes a lot more preparation, a lot more funding, but I actually don't think there's much crossover between the comedy audience and the theatre audience, and therefore the theatre audience in both Adelaide and Edinburgh will find what they're looking for. And whilst the popular perception is that there's a lot more comedy than there is theatre, there is still enough theatre to go around for the theatre audience.
So you've had a very stellar career in producing and performing at the Edinburgh Fringe, including a couple of shows with the biggest grossing of all time.
Yes.
Why Adelaide? It's a long way away from Scotland.
Well, Adelaide is the second biggest festival in the world, and it has a similar energy to Edinburgh. It has it's very. They're about the same size cities, although Edinburgh has a bigger population by about 1 million. And it has a similar energy during Fringe time. There's a similar sort of feel about the place. You can move from venue to venue very easily. And it's been set up on the same basis, i.e. it's an uncurated fringe. Anybody can come and take the risk. And Adelaide has grown with that in the sense that they support it. They love their fringe. They come out and they spend money. They wait for that month and they take risks. So in the sense that the two festivals, they're sort of a brother and sister in their style, size and function. And it's a natural partner for Edinburgh in the sense that it's 6 months between each one. So you can sort of plan your year around opening a show in Edinburgh, bringing it to Adelaide, or opening a show in Adelaide and bringing it to Edinburgh. It's a very good juxtaposition. So I fell upon that, luckily in 2004 when I came out with 12 Angry Men, which was a very, very successful show. And we were brought to the International Festival, where I didn't have any risk, and I just walked around town and felt what the Fringe was like, and I thought, yes, I could bring my Fringe shows to the Adelaide Fringe without any problem. I'm not sure the Adelaide Fringe would sustain a big production like 12 Angry Men on the Fringe, but it certainly worked in the International Festival.
I wanted to ask about that. You mentioned the challenges of theatre within a fringe environment. So what characterises the type of shows in terms of resources and so forth that you bring to an Adelaide Fringe?
Well, my audience is primarily, I would say, the festival audience, the international festival audience, because that's traditionally been my audience in Edinburgh as well. At the Assembly Rooms in Edinburgh, it's a very sort of a middle class, if you like, audience that likes their a good environment to come and witness their theatre. They're not necessarily averse to risk taking, but or being challenged, but they don't want to go and see sort of nakedness on stage in a sort of a darkened room with one single light, and they don't like the grungy fringe experience. So if you like, I've designed my theatre to cater to that market, intellectual, thought-provoking, and people who really like sort of the festival style theatre, but on a smaller scale. And Adelaide has got a big audience out there who perhaps wouldn't normally come to the Fringe, so that I'm really giving them something to come and see in the off-festival years.
Now this year's you've brought about 9 shows, I think it is, to town, many of which have a World War II theme to them, and Goering and Mussolini and Aldorf.
Yeah.
Any particular reason why that genre maybe has popped up?
Well, it so happens that we started with a piece called Adolf, which I directed Pip in 1998 with Adolf. It was an incredibly successful piece and generated a lot of controversy, but was fundamentally a very anti-racist piece of work, and a very clever piece of work. And I followed that up with, I wanted to get deeper into understanding why Nazism occurred and why there was this shift to the right in Europe. And I then followed it up with a piece about Hermann Goering, which had equal success. It just so happens that the two are available to bring to Adelaide this year. So whilst there is a theme, the history in theatre sort of theme, if you like, it just so happens that we've got the two leading Nazis on stage, both directed by me. And then the same actor who did Goering back in 2000 wrote another piece about Mussolini, because he's an historian and he's very interested in that part of history. Not only that, there's a lot of drama in that element of history, and bringing it to the stage, putting people in the presence, if you like, of these people who took momentous decisions and catastrophic decisions, and their actions caused pain to millions of people. We want to understand why and how that can happen, and theatre is a good way of doing that.
Now you're opening the batting in your new show in Shylock. Tell us a little bit about Shylock.
Well, Shylock is a show that I produced back in '97 in Edinburgh. It was, again, very, very successful. A guy called Gareth Armstrong came to me with this idea. He'd just played Shylock in The Merchant of Venice, and in his research he was just astounded by the history of Jews through history, in particular in theatre. And he wrote a one-man show through the eyes of the only other Jewish man in the whole of Shakespeare, Tubal, which is Shylock's only ally, and his only friend, actually, the only person in the play that likes Shylock. And through the character of Tubal, we have an understanding of why Shylock is the way he is and what he's fighting for. And this is also a metaphor for how Jews have been treated through history. And so through the character of Tubal, through the story of Shylock, we get a much greater understanding of the persecution of Jews. We also get an understanding of the persecution of any downtrodden ethnic minority. So it's not just about how Jews have been treated through history, it's also about how Jews are treating the Palestinians now, and the sort of somewhat hypocritical turn of the tables that we perceive. So it brings that all, but it's all to the forefront. But it's also in the framework of a very entertaining, light-hearted piece, but with some very nice, hard-edged digs, if you like.
There are many challenges in producing shows in Adelaide for the Fringe, in particular, I think, the dominance of the Garden of Unearthly Delights.
Yes.
But also for you bringing shows here, the issues of staging and rehearsing and so forth. Just tell us about some of those challenges in terms of the mechanics of bringing shows here to Adelaide and publicising your shows here in Adelaide.
Well, in relation to Garden of Unearthly Delights, first and foremost, I think it's a fantastic place. It's great. It's come to signify the Fringe for the majority of Adelaideans. But these are not the Adelaideans who go to theatre generally. They're the Adelaideans who just go out for a good time. They know that the Fringe is on. They see a bit of burlesque, a bit of comedy, and hopefully they'll see 1 or 2 pieces of theatre. But the Garden of Unearthly Delights is not the festival. It just kind of represents a part of the festival. And I love going down to the garden, so more power to it. what the message I'd like to get out though is that don't think that that is the festival. There's a whole hell of a lot going on elsewhere, and particularly down the west side, Higher Ground, Nexus, Upper Queens, Madge, here at the Arts. There are lots of venues which are putting on a lot of theatre down here on the west side. It's a great place to come if you want your theatre fix. But ultimately I think that quality shines through, and Adelaide Festival audiences will see that the work we do is worth seeing, and they will come and we will get enough bums on seats to pay for itself.
Guy, we're looking forward very much to the program. Kicks off on Friday night, of course, here at Higher Ground and also the Royalty Theatre. I hope it goes well, and I'm sure Adelaide audiences will embrace it.
Thank you. I hope they do too, and it's great to be here.